Welcome back to the Cutting Edge stage at CogX 2021. I'm your MC, Jess Wade, a research fellow at Imperial College London. While what you may hear from the media may be all doom and gloom when it comes to AI, it has the potential to enhance every aspect of the daily lives of people all over the world. As AI evolves and becomes more ubiquitous, we have to continually work to make sure that it continues to benefit humans. To help us navigate this increasingly complex space, we're lucky to be joined by Amazon VP and Alexa Chief Scientist Rohit Prasad, who will be joined in conversation by the sensational tech and business journalist Claire Duffy. Thanks so much, and over to you, Rohit.
Thank you. I'm Rohit Prasad, and I lead Alexa's artificial intelligence technologies. I am living my childhood dream of AI enhancing every aspect of our lives and benefiting the human society at large. I'm thrilled with the progress that has happened so far, and I can't wait for what AI brings for us in the coming years. From Alan Turing's seminal paper in 1950s to AI assistants that have become integral in our daily lives, AI has witnessed lots of ups and downs, from periods of extreme optimism to extreme pessimism. But if you step back, you have to be admiring how far AI as a field has come. The work and effort of thousands of researchers is coming to fruition. AI can beat the best human at many complex games. AI can recognize objects and images with very high accuracy. AI can even have generate text, speech, and even have free-flowing conversations. Clearly, we have come a long way. If you look at how AI is impacting our daily lives today, it's in many different industries, from industrial automation to healthcare to education, and of course, my favorite, the AI assistants that are making our daily lives much better on the go, at homes, and at work, and at schools. One reason why we have come this far in the adoption of AI is because of many different ways AI can be integrated today. If you're an AI enthusiast or a student, a graduate student, let's say in grad school, or even a high school student who's working on their robotics project, you have access to a huge number of capabilities. You can start with deep learning-based frameworks that can make it very easy for you to integrate capabilities through MXNet or TensorFlow or PyTorch. Any of these open source frameworks you can use to integrate it into your application or a project that you're working on. For AI practitioners, there's of course much more complex workflows that you can use to build models and deploy them. Amazon SageMaker, Kubeflow, and many other open source capabilities are also available to make that very easy. If you really wanted as an enterprise to have more full stack solutions, that's also an absolute possibility with tool chains like Amazon Lex, where you can build your own conversational bot, or Amazon Transcribe, which can be used to transcribe audio, or even Amazon Recognition, where you can actually have images being recognized too. So many varieties of full stack solutions for your own workflow that you can integrate AI into. And of course, what's also happening is to make AI be really fast, scalable, and cost affordable. There are custom AI chips which can do very sophisticated machine learning on the edge if you wanted to do it on device or in cloud for both training and inference. Given all these, the future is really very, very positive for AI. In fact, what we thought as science fiction is becoming reality. Billions of requests are issued to many forms of AIs. You have AIs where you have in enterprises where you have to make decisions from petabytes and petabytes of data. Here again, machine learning has a lot of promise for us. Perhaps the best glimpse of future is through conversational AI assistants like Alexa that are integrated into our daily lives. With these services, what we are really making possible is what I think of ambient AI. where the AI is there to help you when you need it and recedes in the background when you don't. Today, Alexa gets billions of requests, ranging from play your favorite tune, to play your video, to control your smart home lights, to ask information of any kind. Even during this pandemic, Alexa has helped in many ways. It has made it very easy to get accurate and timely information for COVID. It has made us check in on our loved ones, like parents and children, if they're quarantined. For instance, you can use drop in or call them through Alexa. And also, more recently, it has made it much easier for you to look up for COVID vaccination sites. We already had many things on testing sites, information, and so forth. The fact that you can actually look up information on where can you get the vaccine is actually telling you that Alexa has been useful even in these times. With such massive adoption comes numerous scientific challenges. We started on this journey in 2014, where Alexa had to be great on modeling certain phenomena. For instance, it had to be great at recognizing speech from a distance. It also had to be great at understanding your intent. And then when it had understood your intent and is ready for an action, it needs to tell you what it's going to be doing, which means the text-to-speech synthesis should be very fluent and natural. In 2014, all of this came together through massive data for many different sensors, then also large computing, and of course the advances in deep learning that all came together for us to be able to launch Alexa with such high accuracy. But now we have to move up the AI stack, and Alexa is already making more intelligent decisions and even getting into reasoning and autonomy on your behalf through self-learning. But to really make the future of ambient AI come to fruition, Alexa has to combine many different sensors, deep machine learning and AI, and bring it all together as part of magical customer experiences that will delight our customers on a daily basis. The potential of AI in every parts of our lives is unbounded, which means we have to make sure that AI advances are on our terms and for benefits of everyone. There are two facets to this. First, if you think about all the technological innovations through the years, it has been a symbiotic relationship between the human and the technology. Each of them have to adapt to the other. However, the onus historically has been such that the humans have to adapt to the technology more than vice versa. Take, for example, your phones or cars, and even the smartphones of today's. This is your screen. Variety of apps, you have to go and find what you need, open them, huge cognitive load. In contrast, when we introduced Alexa in 2014 with a simple smart speaker or the original Echo, all that cognitive load disappeared. You had to simply ask Alexa to do something for you. And now, Alexa can even adapt in many different ways where you have a screen-based Alexa, which actually moves with you. This is the kind of adaptation we need to double down. In fact, with machine learning and AI, the profound difference with other technologies is that it can learn a lot about you. And if you give the permission, it should be able to be much more magical for you by using those learning and be able to adapt to you, customize to you, unlike other technologies we have seen in the past. The second facet to make sure AI is on our terms is the ethical considerations of AI. Self-driving car and their safety, AI use in weapons or military use, facial recognition and surveillance, or deepfakes for spreading misinformation, or have all raised safety concerns. These are valid considerations, And regulation as a means of controlling this is absolutely should be considered. However, we need to be very thoughtful in terms of whether we should regulate the use case or the technology itself. In fact, take, for example, the example of facial recognition. It's really the use case of where it can be used for surveillance or law enforcement that should be considered for regulation, and not so much the exact different use cases where facial recognition for authentication, for instance, of your device. These are very different use cases. I firmly believe for the future of AI to be on our terms and for us and benefit everyone, we should think about pillars for the future that AI should abide by. In the context of Alexa or conversational AI as a whole, I think of these pillars as threefold. First is trust, second is naturalness, and third is generalized intelligence. If you think about building trust, one has to treat customer trust absolutely paramount. And just like we trust humans who have certain attributes, the AI needs to have the same kind of attributes. The first attribute in my mind is competence. An AI like Alexa, again, in the context of Alexa, needs to have vast knowledge and skills, has to be very accurate and fast so that you can trust Alexa's competence. The second element is discreetness. Alexa needs to keep your information private and secure. And we also believe in transparency and control in the hands of the customer. If you don't want to share a certain information with Alexa, you should definitely have the option of opting out from that. The third aspect is fairness. Alexa should be inclusive, work equitably well, and should be devoid of inappropriate bias for everyone. In fact, we're working very hard on many different dimensions of bias. For instance, breaking the stereotypes, like nurses are women and wrestlers are men, shouldn't be the case with Alexas and its knowledge bases. Lastly, just like any other human, Alexa needs to respect the societal norms and be ethical in that context. Use of Alexa to spy on your neighbors would not be ethical. Or in robotics world, safety is a big concern. Both mental and physical health of society members should be considered in the use of AI. The second element is naturalness. In context of Alexa, as proud as we are with the fact that you can just simply talk to Alexa from a distance and issue requests, I believe it's going to be way more magical if you can have natural, free-flowing conversation with Alexa. Can you go from single user to multiple user conversations, which is what your households are? Can Alexa adapt to your style and pace? We are working extremely hard on this, and let's look at a video.
Alexa, join our conversation.
Okay, let's talk.
We'd like recommendations for a good action movie.
Here are some movies you might like.
But we just watched one last night. How about show us drama movies?
Here you go.
What is the first movie about?
Sylvie's Love is about a young woman who meets an aspiring
Is it a good movie?
Sylvie's Love has a 6.8 rating.
I've seen it, and it's not my favorite. But Lance Reddick was great in it. And he was great in John Wick. Can you show me other movies with Lance Reddick?
Here are some movies you might like.
What do you think about One Night in Miami?
Yeah, that sounds good. I heard good things about the movie. Okay, play number 3.
As you saw in that interaction, once the user gave the permission for Alexa to join the conversation was extremely fluid. Yeah, there was no mention of the explicit word Alexa on every turn. And the way Alexa was able to do this is that there were many different inputs, both acoustic cues and visual cues, that were being combined to determine whether who is talking to Alexa and is it even addressed towards Alexa. And then once Alexa was confident that the request is directed to it, there is on-device speech recognition happening such that you recognize this audio pretty fast rather than going for all this audio to go to the cloud. You can recognize it on the device using our neural AZ1 processor. And then the conversational context in the cloud determines what's the best response, taking the entire context of the conversation and finally playing the output to the target user. And you also saw with our latest Show 10, the screen was moving in the appropriate direction. Extremely hard problem. But this is an example of Alexa, or the AI in this case, adapting to the user space, the user's style, and the user's ambient environment, including where you could have multiple humans in the scene. This is the kind of interaction we need to double down, and I look forward to bringing this to our customers later this year. As magical as that natural turntaking was, we're not stopping there. We believe we can have far more open domain conversations with AIs like Alexa. And one of the things we've been doing there is to work with university teams on what is called the Alexa Prize competition, where university teams are competing to build social bots that can coherently and engagingly converse with you for 20 minutes on any topic of interest. This is where, to help the university teams, we have built a new capability of a neural response generator that takes the latest inventions in transformer-based neural networks to generate more natural responses in context of the conversation. Take, for example, this short snippet where someone said, a user said, yeah, I like cats as part of the conversation. And you see a long response from the baseline neural response generator. While the response is pretty good, it is trying to talk about whether the AI prefers dogs over cats and asking a question, which pet would you like to keep? Quite natural, but it's not as relevant as the next response, which is through our work in using knowledge, deep knowledge in terms of like, there are 60 different breeds of cats. Here's neural response generator with knowledge selection that comes back with a much better answer. It says, I like cats too. Did you know that there are over 60 breeds of cats? In my mind, this is far more relevant and a much better response when you're having open domain conversation, just like two humans will have. The next pillar in my mind is generalized intelligence. And there's a lot of confusion about what generalized intelligence means, or in popular zeitgeist, what AGI or artificial general intelligence means. I think of it as three different problems that a more generalized intelligence can solve. One is, can intelligence be really multi-purpose? And where multi-purpose doesn't mean all-purpose, multi-purpose in the way that you are designing the AI to have many different skills, but not with intelligence being hand-coded or through very task-specific infusion of intelligence where every new task requires significant effort. The second element is how AI self-adapts rather, in variability within a known set of tasks. This is where we have been working on many different areas where Alexa can become robust to many different kind of input. And the third, one of the hardest problem, is where AI can learn new tasks with minimum input from the humans. To start with, let's look at self-learning. And in self-learning, we are doubling down on reducing reliance on supervised learning, where humans have to label a lot of data for the AI or machine learning algorithms to learn. Instead, there's a large shift into more self-supervised or unsupervised learning, where you can build massive models on unlabeled data and then appropriately distill them to run in real time using more task-specific data. This is revolutionizing the field, and Alexa uses such approaches for both speech recognition, language understanding, and I believe this will just be more transformative for all aspects of AI. The second element, which we as humans do very well, but AI struggles still, is how to transfer learning from one task to another. Here again, in the realms of natural language understanding, we have seen early success in marrying deep learning with transfer learning. Last, but perhaps most importantly, is how Alexa can learn from user feedback itself. Alexa now has the capability that it detects based on customer signals, both implicit and explicit, that it may have done something wrong and automatically corrects its actions. For instance, if you said play BBC and Alexa misrecognized it as play BBC, it can automatically reformulate the query that you're really looking for, play BBC World News, and plays that for you in the subsequent turns. Alexa is already, with this approach, fixing majority of the errors for our customers. And the beauty is that not only does it reduce the reliance on data, it becomes smarter, better for our customers much, much faster. Another element of general intelligence, which is making Alexa much more useful for our customers, is the self-awareness. Alexa is far more aware of the ambient state and is able to reason about it. And this reasoning can help you with setting location-specific reminders, or routines suggested to you automatically, or even hunches where Alexa figures out that you left that garage door open or that light that you've left just on when you typically turn it off every night. These are the kind of ways Alexa can help you more proactively and brings our ambient intelligence vision to fruition. The third challenge, which I deem to be the hardest for AI researchers as us, is the challenge of self-serve. And self-serve, if done at scale, would be the most powerful way of democratizing AI. With Alexa Voice Service, our developers can integrate Alexa into their application or devices whenever they can and with very little work. With Alexa Skills Kit, anyone can build a skill on Alexa. And this is where we are continuing to invent new ways for Alexa developers to be able to author skills with minimum code and minimum data requirements. Here, Alexa Conversations, our deep learning-based conversational modeling system, has been revolutionary in reducing the amount of code you need to write by an order of magnitude. Alexa Conversations is now generally available in the US, and it's making our developers be able to author much more complex conversational skills than was thought to be possible. So here itself, we're also using massive pre-trained language models that can actually make it easy for your skill to be much better in a new task or a new domain that you're trying to support through your skill. Perhaps most exciting is how self-serve can be done by end users themselves. With Alexa Blueprints, we made it possible for end users to write their own skill with no code requirements. All you needed was just a simple template that you had to go into the app. Now, we are able to do that kind of customization just through voice. In fact, in last September, I demonstrated how Alexa, when it doesn't understand a new concept from the end user's utterance, it comes back and asks, just like we do as humans, I had trouble understanding that. Can you help me learn that concept? Alexa is now learning thousands of concepts daily by asking users to teach her. Now we are taking this a step further, which we'll be bringing to the users of Alexa later this year. Can we play the video?
Alexa, show me popular restaurants nearby.
Okay, here are some top-rated restaurants. Mesquite Barbecue, Jimmy's Burger Town, 12-ounce Burger and Bar. Would you like directions?
Alexa, I don't eat meat.
Okay, I'll remember that for recipes, restaurants, and groceries. Here are some top-rated vegetarian restaurants. The Emerald Terrace, Leaf and Spoon, Roots Brigade. Would you like directions for any of these?
This is where Alexa was learning automatically when the user said he is a vegetarian, that preference was explicitly mentioned by the customer, and Alexa remembers that. Let me show you how Alexa remembers that. Let's play the next video.
Alexa, show me a popular recipe.
Okay, here's mushroom tacos with salsa verde.
So what you saw with all of those self capabilities is what my colleague refers to, that like AI is bringing the age of self in AI. And that is amazing to see. But I actually believe that all the pillars I showed in terms of trust, naturalness, and general intelligence are applicable to all aspects of AI. And these pillars give me the supreme optimism that AI in the future will be in our terms and will benefit everyone in our society. Thank you so much.
Rohit, thank you so much. I'm Claire Duffy, reporter with CNN Business. That was really interesting and touched on a number of topics that I'm excited to know more about. So let's get into some questions. First, I've got to ask, I know you're super passionate about conversational AI in general and Alexa specifically. How many Alexa-enabled speakers do you have in your house, and how are you using them?
Yeah, that's a question I get quite often. I have over 20 devices in my house now on the different floors altogether. And we have a device in our kitchen, which gets used most often, I would say, because that's where with teenage kids, we still spend most of our times. And that's a Show 10. And I have this habit of that whenever we have new devices, I try and bring it in our most used areas so that I can get more feedback from my family as well. And this is where it's been fascinating, where Show 10 in our kitchen has been just a delight because it has got great music quality in terms of the audio quality, and also the screen moving makes the calling features so much better for us.
I know Amazon wants to make Alexa increasingly proactive and autonomous. How do you make that possible, and how do you tell what's a good or a bad situation for Alexa to be making decisions on its own?
Yeah, actually, as I showed that in terms of how Alexa is progressing up in the AI stack, we think of in the early days of Alexa, we have managed to automate more of the routine or more simpler tasks. And then the next evolution is definitely, as you mentioned, to make Alexa more proactive. And this is where, as I mentioned, that the ambient state is very important. Where you are, what is the intent you have expressed, or if you have set this that you have a flight to catch and the traffic is getting worse, you clearly want, if Alexa has that knowledge, that Alexa should let you know that you should leave now to catch your flight. But the biggest one to do this at scale in my mind is the feature like hunches, where it can detect many such anomalies that from your daily patterns and help you in the moment that you have left that garage door open. I mean, that is where your peace of mind comes to, is so important. One of my favorite features is Guard, where Alexa can detect acoustic events like glass breaking or dog barking, for instance, and smoke alarm and so forth, where you have these functionalities available to set any routine of your choice so that Alexa can do that task proactively for you. If you notice in the context of features like Guard, because you don't always know what is the best outcome for the customer, this is why having them choose the best routine to initiate based on a particular event, I believe is the best way to go, because it's transparent, gives the control for the customers on when and how proactive Alexa should be. So more and more of these transparency, explainability, and control in the hands of the user is the way to go for proactive features.
One of the other things you referenced in your talk is this idea of natural turn-taking, which in the case of Alexa is where it enables a back and forth interaction with a user, similar to a conversation that people would have.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this so hard to do, and how is Amazon making it possible?
It's hard to do for a variety of factors. Just if you think about if you were in your house, you're not saying the person's name on every turn. Let's say you're in a multi-family environment, which means that a lot of context of not just what you said, how you said, needs to come in, and even the visual cues are quite needed to determine who is the speech addressed to. So that is an incredibly hard problem, and then you have to think about what's my best response. That is based on what you've shared in the context of the conversation that's happening now, but also a lot of context from earlier interactions. And this is where you have to break new grounds in terms of how Alexa can model both the session context and the broader context to give the most appropriate responses.
Got it. That's an interesting point you make about all of the sort of nonverbal cues that happen in a human interaction that Alexa is having to sort of compensate for. And with this kind of feature, how many turns are you aiming for? What would be realistic for Alexa in terms of participating in a conversation like this?
Yeah, as you saw in this particular mode, you say, Alexa, join the conversation. After that point, I think it's really unbounded in my mind. This is where you have to adapt the conversation to the pace of the user. And in this case, many users can be interacting with Alexa. So it depends on how deep and broad the customer wants to go, and it re-emphasizes my point that it's AI's problem to adapt to the customer and not vice versa. So I really believe that's the key. And we have certain proof points where in Alexa, in the Alexa prize contest that we talked about, where customers and users are having many minutes of conversation, beyond 10 minutes often, with the social bots that are definitely talking on many different domains. So it will remain to be seen like how customers will use it, but I think everyone has different needs with Alexa. It is for some it's a trusted assistant, for some it is an advisor, for some it's a fun and caring companion. And for all these different personas, I believe it will be a different mode of interaction. So we want really the flexibility of how long and how you want to talk should be up to you. Now we'll see how far we are able to achieve that in our first year, but this will be a multi-year journey, and I'm very optimistic about how customers will be delighted with this feature.
So we've got a question from a viewer, from Alexandra. Can Alexa recognize emotions from the voice of a user, and is this an area that Amazon is exploring with AI?
Yeah, we have introduced some of the features with the Halo band. But I think another way of thinking about it is I mentioned about how self-learning is happening with Alexa. And one of the cues that Alexa uses to determine whether it did something incorrectly is through your frustration or vocal frustration in your voice. And that itself is a very big deal on a far field interaction where it's not a close talking mic, you're interacting with Alexa, it's in your home. So understanding your emotional cues, such as even that you're frustrated at Alexa, is critical, and we have been working on it for a while, and we are delighted with the progress so far. But this is such a hard problem that if you ask any human to assess my emotions right now, it would be extremely hard unless you know that person quite well. So while we're very proud of how far emotion recognition and has come in the AI community, I think the best places we have seen early success is really how frustration and can be used to detect errors, and that is where it has been a very useful aspect of emotions being useful for making the AI smarter.
Got it. That's really interesting. I want to talk about ethics and fairness in using Alexa and conversational AI in general. I know this is something that you touched on. How do we make sure Alexa is being used in ways that are helpful and work well for all kinds of users? And what are some of the biggest challenges right now in making conversational AI useful for anybody?
Yeah, this is where I want to go back in time a bit to our origins of Alexa in 2014. And if you thought about those days, it was just the far field speech recognition, different environments, was an extremely hard challenge. Once you started combining with every part, we are a global company. We wanted Alexa to be accessible to everyone. Different users have different accents. They grow up in different parts of the world. So we went out of the way to collect the data that would give Alexa a good representation of different dialects, speech, linguistic variations, and so that at launch itself, Alexa worked better than just working for a small privileged community. However, we recognize this is still early, and one of the things that we have been working on is more techniques with where you can do stratified sampling on which part of the community or which part of the users Alexa is having trouble recognizing. And this is where you can think of it. It's not just based on certain demographics. It's like if you have a weak voice, you'll struggle a bit to wake up Alexa. And to me, these are the kind of things we have to make much better for Alexa for everyone. And this again touches on my point of the AI adapting to you. So if you have a weaker voice, Alexa should figure out how to lower the threshold of detection so that it can recognize the word Alexa when you're talking to Alexa, and make it super simple for that customer to be delighted with Alexa too, by the AI itself adapting. So that's one element of making it work equally well for everyone. The other aspect, which I also touched upon, is that we are actually working with institutions like National Science Foundation, where in initiatives of fairness, where because there are deep problems here in terms of how Alexa or any other AI for that matter can be more inclusive, more equitable. That requires foundational research. But we have our own efforts where, in terms of one of the areas I mentioned is knowledge bases, which can actually have some, because they're trained on large quantities of data or it's extracted from large quantities of data, that you don't want some data bias creeping in and through the examples that I mentioned in my talk.
We see conversational AI used a lot in homes. The ads tend to showcase how it can be used by different members of the family in different parts of the house. Can you speak a little bit to how Alexa is being used by companies and how they might be useful in the future?
Yeah, I think there is, we believe with capabilities like Alexa voice service that anyone can integrate Alexa. We are definitely seeing early success for automotive industry, for instance, that you have Alexa in Ford cars. I think another thing is in hotels, for instance, Alexa having a Marriott skill, for instance, on Alexa is hugely important. I think of enterprises being a very important piece for Alexa as a whole for their adoption. And we are seeing a lot of early success, but I feel like in the future, you'll see a lot more in that area.
And I know we just have a couple more minutes. I'd love to know what's something you'd eventually love to be able to do with Alexa that just isn't possible yet, and what has to happen to make that possible?
Yeah, I think one of the areas which I'm really hoping with natural turn-taking becomes really easier is when you're looking for a certain, for instance, a gift for your loved one, and any type of thing where Alexa can help you make those decisions much easier, or follow certain news trends. These are very important in terms of your both the naturalness aspect on Alexa also being able to help you in that moment. So I think these are the kind of things that I believe with natural turn taking, you'll find that anything that requires many different sessions can become much easier with Alexa, so that you're able to it's not just like one request at a time and then responses, it's much more natural because you're able to just have a free-flowing conversation, which will, I think, unleash many different capabilities on Alexa. So I just believe that it will, that's the next way to break the human-computer interaction paradigm. And once that happens, you'll find many different skill sets that Alexa can have.
Awesome. Rohit, well, thank you so much. It was great talking to you, and it's really exciting all that this is going to make possible. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much again, Rohit, for such a fascinating and fast-paced conversation. I now can't get this kind of Toy Story-like image that at night Rohit's 20 home assistants all communicate with one another out of my head. I hope that everyone in the audience is a little bit more optimistic about the future of AI. I want to end this session by thanking our sponsors, Accenture, BT, Visa, and Quantum Black for supporting CogX. And thank you to all of you for connecting to our hybrid conference. Please remember to share your thoughts and ideas on social media using the hashtag CogX2021. And join us in 20 minutes when we're going to be exploring AI transparency and how we can ask questions of machine learning systems. Thanks so much and see you soon.